2025 WNBA Finals presented by YouTube TV. We'll begin with remarks from Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, and then we'll turn it over to question and answer. Please have.
What if you were handed the one key that could unlock a billion-dollar future, a guaranteed path to mainstream relevance, and you simply refused to use it? That is exactly the position the WNBA found itself in. The league was handed that key. A generational talent. A cultural phenomenon. A name that was already bigger than the sport itself. Caitlin Clark. And with the entire world watching women's basketball in a way it never had before, WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert found herself standing at the center of a moment that could have changed everything. Instead, what followed was a decision so baffling, so tone-deaf, and so brutally mishandled that it left millions of fans, old and new, asking one chilling question: is the WNBA actively sabotaging its own success? For decades, the league had fought for every inch of coverage, every sponsorship dollar, every sold ticket, every ounce of legitimacy in the broader sports world. Then, almost overnight, one player changed the equation. And this was never just about a single roster spot on an Olympic team. This was about a defining crossroads, a moment that could shape the future of women's sports for the next 20 years. A moment that should have been embraced, celebrated, and strategically leveraged. Instead, it exploded into controversy, outrage, and a firestorm that still hasn't died down. Because the story of what really happened, behind the closed doors of USA Basketball and inside the WNBA's own power structure, reveals something far deeper than a routine selection dispute. It reveals politics, it reveals ego, and it reveals a league that may have been terrified of the very superstar it so desperately needed. It all began when a force of nature unlike anything women's basketball had ever seen stepped onto the court. Caitlin Clark was never just another great college player. She was a tidal wave, a spectacle, a sports phenomenon wrapped in sneakers and swagger. Her games at Iowa didn't just set records for women's basketball. They shattered records for basketball, period. Male or female. Her final college appearance, the 2024 NCAA Women's Championship game, drew an average of 18.9 million viewers, peaking at nearly 24 million. Think about that. That made it the most watched basketball game of any kind in the United States in 5 years. Not women's basketball. Basketball. It drew more viewers than NBA Finals games. More viewers than the final rounds of the Masters. More than deciding World Series games. The message from the American public could not have been clearer. People didn't just want basketball. They wanted Caitlin Clark basketball. And when she was drafted #1 overall by the Indiana Fever, that audience followed her straight into the WNBA. Suddenly, a league that had spent 28 years fighting the label of niche had become one of the hottest tickets in sports. Clark's WNBA debut pulled 2.1 million viewers on ESPN2, making it the league's most watched game in over 2 decades. Teams used to playing in half-filled arenas suddenly had to move games into NBA venues just to handle the demand. Thousands of new fans, many attending their very first WNBA game, were showing up just to watch her launch logo threes and change the geometry of the court with one flick of her wrist. Her number 22 jersey sold out on Fanatics within an hour of the draft. And this wasn't just a strong sales day. She reportedly outsold every player from every other team in the league combined. She wasn't just a star. She was a one-woman economic engine, a walking ratings boom, a sponsorship magnet, a marketing dream so powerful that even the league's long-stalled debate over charter flights suddenly became impossible to ignore. Because flying the most famous female athlete in America on commercial airlines was no longer realistic. The Caitlin Clark effect wasn't hype. It was measurable. It was undeniable. And it was the greatest gift the WNBA had ever been given. But while fans, sponsors, broadcasters, and executives outside the league were celebrating her arrival, something far darker was brewing inside it. Because behind the scenes, among some of the very people who stood to benefit from her success, the mood was not excitement. It was resentment. To the public, the red carpet was rolled out. But inside the league, a very different welcome was being prepared. A hostile one. From the very first possession of her rookie season, it was obvious that Clark was being targeted. And not in the ordinary welcome to the pros sense. This went beyond rookie hazing, beyond hard fouls, beyond standard physicality. She was hip-checked, bumped, shoved, elbowed, and sent to the floor with a regularity that quickly became impossible to ignore. And often, the whistles never came. It was as if an unspoken message had already spread across the league. She may be a superstar out there, but in here, she has to be broken in. Or broken down. And then came the moment that ripped the mask off completely. During a nationally televised game against the Chicago Sky, Kennedy Carter delivered a blatant shoulder check to Clark while the ball wasn't even in play. Clark wasn't defending her. She wasn't involved in the action. There was no basketball move to be made. It was a cheap shot, a deliberate shot, a message. Clark hit the floor, and the sports world erupted. The officials initially called it a common foul, a decision so ridiculous that the league was later forced to upgrade it to a flagrant foul after public backlash. But as ugly as the incident itself was, what came after was even more revealing. Carter refused to meaningfully address it. Angel Reese was seen reacting from the bench in a way that only fueled the controversy. And suddenly, what had been simmering beneath the surface exploded into public view. This wasn't just about hard-nosed competition. It felt personal. It felt like a message not just to Clark, but to the millions of fans who had followed her into the league. Your favorite player may have changed the business of this sport, but that doesn't mean she's welcome in its inner circle. And while that on-court hostility grabbed headlines, an even more consequential battle was unfolding behind closed doors. Because looming on the horizon was the biggest stage in international sports, the 2024 Paris Olympics. For any elite athlete, the Olympics represent the peak, the dream, the ultimate badge of arrival. And for a player with Caitlin Clark's reach, visibility, and momentum, her inclusion on Team USA felt inevitable. It wasn't even framed as a debate. It was treated like a formality. Because this wasn't only about her skill set, though her range, passing, and gravity would have made her a nightmare for international defenses. It was also about the business of basketball. The Olympics would have given USA Basketball and the WNBA a chance to showcase the single most talked about women's athlete in the world to a truly global audience. Billions of eyes, dozens of markets, an unmatched growth opportunity. NBC had to be salivating at the ratings potential. You could already imagine it. Camera cutaways, sold-out arenas, non-stop coverage, a global introduction of Caitlin Clark as the face of the next era. And through her, the WNBA would have gained something it had always wanted: international momentum on a massive scale. The stage was set for a coronation, the kind of Olympic moment that turns a national sensation into a worldwide icon. And then the roster dropped, and her name wasn't on it. The sports world didn't react with mild surprise. It reacted with shock, then anger, then disbelief so intense it spilled across every major sports show, every news desk, and every social platform in America. How could the most transformational player in the sport, the one driving ratings, tickets, jersey sales, and conversation, be left off the team? The decision made no sense from a business standpoint. It made no sense from a visibility standpoint. And to many people, it didn't even make sense from a basketball standpoint. Yes, the roster included legends and decorated veterans: Diana Taurasi, Brittany Griner, Breanna Stewart, and others. Great players, proven champions, elite resumes. But none of them, not one, carried even a fraction of Clark's cultural pull in that moment. Not close. So leaving her off didn't feel like a neutral basketball decision. It felt personal. It felt political. It felt like a message from the establishment that the sport's most powerful new force would not be handed the spotlight, no matter how much she had already earned it. And the backlash was immediate. Talk shows lit up. Debates raged. The story leapt out of sports media and into the broader national conversation. Because now, this wasn't just about a roster. It was about gatekeeping, about jealousy, about whether a league that had begged for mainstream attention was now rejecting the very player who had finally delivered it. And then came the explanation, or at least what passed for one. The official reasoning for Clark's exclusion was almost laughably weak. Anonymous reports pointed to her lack of professional experience, that she had only played a handful of WNBA games at the time of selection. Others hinted at team chemistry, suggesting that adding a player with that level of media attention might disrupt the veteran dynamic. But these explanations collapsed under even minimal scrutiny. The experience argument was quickly shredded by analysts and historians, who pointed out that stars like Candace Parker and Breanna Stewart had made Olympic rosters as rookies or near rookies. So clearly, youth and inexperience had never been disqualifying before. And the chemistry argument? That one was even worse. Because what it really sounded like was this. Some people simply didn't want her there. That explanation fed directly into the growing belief that parts of the old guard were deeply uncomfortable with Clark's immediate stardom. Not because she hadn't earned attention, but because she had earned more of it faster than anyone before her. The truth many fans suspected, even if nobody wanted to say it outright, was that the decision-makers were afraid. Afraid of the media frenzy. Afraid of the pressure to play her. Afraid of the spotlight shifting too quickly. And maybe most of all, afraid of how veteran stars would react if the torch began passing before they were ready to let go of it. So the official reasoning became a smokescreen. A corporate shield hiding something far uglier. Internal politics. Resentment. And a refusal to fully embrace the player who had become the sport's biggest opportunity. But what truly exposed the scale of the failure was the response from the one person who could have changed the tone of the entire conversation. Commissioner Cathy Engelbert. This was her moment, her chance to lead, her chance to frame the situation, her chance to protect the league's most important new star while also supporting the Olympic team. She could have acknowledged Clark's impact. She could have celebrated the momentum. She could have spoken with confidence about the future and reassured fans that the league understood exactly what it had in front of it. Instead, what the public got was a wall of bureaucratic caution, safe statements, sanitized phrasing, corporate restraint. She defended the process. She praised the players who made the team. And she sidestepped the giant, obvious, emotionally charged issue sitting right in front of everyone. It was a stunning failure to read the moment, a missed opportunity of the highest order. Because this was never just about whether one rookie made one team. It was about whether the league's leadership understood the scale of the phenomenon now in its hands. And Engelbert's response made a lot of people think the answer was no. She had the chance to stand up and say, yes, Caitlin Clark is changing this sport. Yes, the attention is real. Yes, the future is here. And yes, this league is ready for it. Instead, she retreated into corporate language so sterile, it satisfied nobody, and only deepened the sense that the league was protecting its old hierarchy rather than embracing its new reality. That was the real brutal decision. Not just the selection itself, but what the response to it revealed. When faced with a moment of truth, the league's leadership appeared more interested in preserving internal comfort than maximizing historic opportunity. And that sent a message, a loud one, that the WNBA, at its most important turning point, might not have been ready for the very superstar capable of changing everything. That is why this controversy has lasted. That is why fans remain furious. And that is why the fallout from leaving Caitlin Clark off the Olympic team reaches far beyond Paris. Because this wasn't just a basketball choice. It was a branding disaster.